Megan, welcome to B2B Content Strategist Podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me, Amy. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I am as well. So thank you. Thank you for your time. It's going to be great. So standard question that I like to start all the episodes with. Could you just explain, brief summary of your role and also a few sentences about AppFolio as well? That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the senior manager of marketing content at AppFolio. And at AppFolio, our mission is to build the platform where the real estate industry comes to do business. So what that means is that we have a really powerful software platform that real estate management teams use to operate nearly every aspect of both property and investment management. So everything from handling the marketing and leasing for rental vacancies, screening renters, supporting renters while they're moving into their new homes, and then on the operations side, handling maintenance to keep properties in great condition. Like if your sink won't drain, there's a tool you can use to get a work order started. Also, accounting and financial reporting tools that investors and owners can use to track the performance of their properties. We also support, a pretty wide variety of property types, everything from, conventional multifamily and single family rentals to student housing, affordable housing, community associations, so like condos and HOAs, and of course, investment management. So I've been with AppFolio for a little over 5 years. And so during that time, I've really had the privilege to see our marketing department grow and scale substantially, including our content team. So when I started, content marketing was just me. Now we're a team of 5 writers and strategists. And we also work with a core group of trusted content agencies within our larger marketing department to serve all of our those different segments and products that I mentioned.
That's so interesting. So 5 years ago, and you came in as the content person, you've been able to grow the team. So you mentioned that there's 5 people now focused on content and specifically in-house. So how have you divided that up? What are the key roles within your content team?
Yeah, so we are divided by function. So we have a copywriter, but also a content specialist. We also are divided by the audience. So we have someone who's focused specifically on writing and communicating for our existing customers and for growth opportunities, and then on the customer acquisition side. So I think if you're thinking about scalability, having it divided on those two variables is maybe not the most scalable thing, but that's how we've grown because those were the needs of the business over the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, and it's awesome to hear that you have grown so much over the past 5 years. So that's great. And then, you already mentioned working with some external support when you need. So from your perspective, certainly from your time here at AppFolio, but I guess just through your career as well, are there any specific skill sets or, types of roles that you will always have a preference to keep in-house within the team, and then others that you actually do see more as that's something that we bring in that's more of an external expertise, skill set or function? So any kind of particulars that you feel are always the ways that you like to work and operate?
I'd say my approach to bringing in content creation partners is pretty flexible, and I'm still trying to dial in the right mix of delegation because there are some really talented vendors that we like to work with. But I also want to make sure and give our internal team members the opportunity to work on a variety of projects, especially some that might stretch them and fuel their growth as content marketers. I guess the rule of thumb, and this is informed by my role at AppFolio, but I find that it can be a little bit difficult to outsource or delegate technical or product forward types of content to outside agencies. And I think it's because, as a B2B marketing organization where our audience is, real estate professionals in a really complex and constantly changing industry. It's hard to find writers and content strategists who can speak our customers' lingo. So we really have to show up to them with a very, very deep level of familiarity with their different business models, the challenges that they're facing, and the economy, but also the context of the really complicated, regulatory environment that they have to operate in. So I think that similar limitations might be the case for other kinds of B2B audiences, but for us, it's like especially true. We really have to build credibility with them in order to have content that's authoritative, trustworthy, and that supports our brand's mission. So when we able to find teams that can do that, then I feel a lot more confident in outsourcing different types of content.
Yeah, absolutely. That completely makes sense. So yeah, I totally understand. So in terms of different campaigns that you've been involved in, so this could be recently, your time at AppFolio, or it could even be across your entire career. Is there a particular campaign that is really memorable to you? So just one of the most memorable campaigns that you've worked on, and why was it so memorable, and what was the measures of success that you were looking for with that campaign?
I have one that I want to talk about that's an event. I mean, I think it, connected to a couple of campaigns that we have or had running at the time, but so it's AppFolio's Future Conference. So let me back up a little bit and share the story. So this past year, we pivoted the strategy of our annual customer conference. Our goals for attendance were significantly higher. So we've been running this event for our customers for 10 years, and it had always been called the AppFolio Customer Conference. We had a really, large core group of loyal customers who, they looked forward to attending every year. They'd come to Santa Barbara. They'd learn all about how they can get more out of the platform and the partnership with AppFolio. But last year, the strategy changed. We went a lot bigger than ever with our targets for attendance, and we renamed the event to Future Conference. And its primary purpose evolved a bit from being just a connection opportunity for our current customer base to becoming really like a major event for the real estate management industry at large. So we had dozens of sessions. They were spread out across 2 days. And for the first time, a big portion of the speakers were from the real estate industry rather than only internal AppFolio speakers talking about our product. So we had leaders, from real estate industry groups like the National Apartment Association, the National Multifamily Housing Council, and a lot more. We also had some of our customers speak, which was great to hear from. A lot of them are leading in their fields. And then also our network of AppFolio Stack partners who provide integrations and consulting. We really got a lot of positive feedback, day of at the event. It was really just clear to everyone who was there, especially those who had been in the past, how much larger of a scale the event was, and also the networking, the connection opportunities for them were really remarkable. So looking at what made it a success, we had a couple different measurements. I think one of the most important was the new business units that we were able to close at the event, as well as opportunities for growth within our customer base. So not just adopting features that they don't currently use, but looking at other kinds of services or plan upgrades that could be a good fit for their business. We had a whole expo hall, which was called Explore, where they could meet with our teams for, screening, payments, also Stack partners. So it was just a great opportunity for them to learn about everything that was available to them.
That's awesome. So how many years did you run it as a more the AppFolio event and more aimed at customers? And is it just the 1 year that you've opened it up?
Yeah, 2024, our very first year. And it would have been a decade before that where it was the AppFolio Customer Conference.
So did you do a much broader marketing of the event as well then to get all those, you said, significantly bigger attendance levels?
Oh, yeah. Our promotional for the event changed quite a bit because when it was the AppFolio Customer Conference, it was mainly just about, communicating that to customers, email via, existing touch points that we have with them in app. But as an industry event, we had to really activate all of our marketing channels to promote it, putting, ads and sponsored spots with industry publications and media, We also really had to be tactical about how we activated speakers and, helped them to invite more people to come. We did advertising for the event. So it was a much, much more comprehensive promotional strategy than it had been in the past.
And is that the future of the event now as well? So no looking back. That's what you're going to do.
And I think this year, 2025, we'll do even better because of everything that we learned.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? Yeah, so that's fantastic. Well, you create so much content and so many different types of content. So obviously you just shared that great example of the big event and that you were doing many events before that. And you guys have your awesome podcast that we have the pleasure of working with you on. You've got your blog posts and really great articles on the website, social content and so on. There's lots and lots of content. What is your favorite type of content to repurpose? So the favorite content that you create that you're going to get lots of ROI from it, as well as just the original piece.
Yeah, I think for me, the most obvious type of content to repurpose is that thought leadership from live events. So much effort goes into preparing for those opportunities. But that also includes live webinars, on-stage presentations at industry events like the one that I was telling you about, but also, if we get invited to participate on stages like at the National Apartment Association's event, for example. So capturing really great quality audio or video during those kinds of live events is what allows those moments to have an impact beyond the day where they occur. So one thing that we did recently was that we used some of the best audio clips from those sessions at the Future Conference to create a really great episode of our podcast. Our podcast is called The Top Floor. And so it had highlights from the event, clips from, a group of different speakers, and that has been great to, both remind people of the event, but also to help, get people thinking about it again for next year.
Yeah, events just are a complete dream when it comes to repurposing, but you have to go into them with a plan, don't you? Thank goodness that you had the audio recordings and video recordings and things like that, because you need to have that repurposing plan somewhat before you go into events, and then they just become a dream, don't they? So you mentioned when you're involved in other events as well as the events you put on, what other types of content do you find lend themselves well from a repurposing perspective when you've done that?
So one other example I'll give you, actually this might be on a slightly different track, but I want to talk a little bit about customer stories because we do videos for those. So we invest, a lot of time and budget to actually go on site with our customers at their offices and to capture their story. We do a video and a photo shoot. And because our customer supporting teams have built really deep relationships with the people who are using our platform, those shoots, they produce some really meaningful videos about our customers' journey of how they've, built and scaled their real estate businesses, but also the impact that it's had on their employees, the residents who live in their properties, and even like the owners' personal lives, families. They go really deep. There's always a lot of footage that just doesn't make it into the final cut of the video just because of length. There's so much good stuff, we can't include it all. So one thing we're looking at this year is how do we take some of those great moments that get captured and create more different types of customer storytelling moments with them. So for example, like we're looking at shorter videos where they're talking about one feature or an aspect of the platform and trying to use those to enable our sales team to help educate customers or prospects about, more specific opportunities to apply technology in their business.
That's awesome. There's always the off course, so to speak, isn't there? And there's so much value from them as well, being able to kind of work out where that value is and where to deploy it. So that's really good. I love that. Are there any particular content creation or content management tools that you and your team are currently loving at the moment? Creation, workflow, those type of tools?
Well, we use Rike for project management, and at this point, I just don't know how we would operate without it. Tracking all of our, reviews that are in progress for building project plans with really detailed Gantt charts that show the timeline and all the dependencies. So we're very dependent on Rike. We also use Figma Mostly our designers use it, but our content team is constantly in there with them, helping, to leave comments about how to lay things out and preview things. We have templates for all the most common types of content that we create, everything from like landing pages for webinars to emails for automated nurture, and all those live in Figma. So we're very connected with that tool.
It's funny in terms of tools that you couldn't live without. We're a ClickUp organization, and I don't know what we would do, like if ClickUp went down, it would just be quite disastrous because we depend on that in the same way as well. So I completely resonate with you when you said that. No, that's awesome. And then what about AI? So this has been a bit of a hot topic on this third season of B2B Content Strategist, where I've been loving to just hear different views and opinions and ways that different B2B content teams are leveraging AI. So is AI featuring in terms of how you guys are working your workflows and creation processes?
Yeah, I would say that we're still pretty early on in like the experimentation stage of AI adoption for content marketing. So, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I think it can be used to make some more of the routine parts of content creation more efficient. The latest advancements that we've seen in generative AI over the past years have been like major leaps forward, but I'm still not fully convinced that those tools on their own can do what I see as one of, the most critical functions of content marketing, which is delivering really insightful perspectives to business leaders about how they have to think differently about opportunities in their industry. We throw around the term thought leadership. I think it's a bit of an overused term and maybe a little bit commoditized, but my take on it is, real thought leadership has to put a stake in the ground. It has to contain an idea that's worth fighting for and worth arguing and communicating really well to win over adherence to your brand's way of thinking. And so right now, I'm not convinced that AI can bring us those insights on its own. At least not, without the strong involvement of actual subject matter experts and industry practitioners. But, it does have some really practical uses. We did a pilot with a tool called Writer AI. And so I was really impressed with its ability to do things like blog article outlines, summaries and recaps of recordings. It's really good at, synthesizing information and picking out themes and summarizing. And I also, love the ability of how you can interact with the AI via that chat-based co-pilot. It's kind of like talking to a junior content marketer or an intern. So the same thing applies. You need to be very prescriptive about what outcome you're looking for. But as long as you can, give it a very clear input and define the task, it can be a powerful tool, for turning raw material into more polished content.
Everything you said about thought leadership, I just couldn't agree more. You can't outsource to a robot thinking, your thinking process and thoughts. Leadership is supposed to be unique, differentiated thoughts and opinions that go beyond. So if AI is coming up with thought leadership content, those words don't go together because it's only saying something that has been said before. It doesn't have that critical thinking and independent thought. So it's not thought leadership, and you're not going to get very far if you outsource thought leadership to AI, are you? Because it will not be that. But I completely agree with you in terms of if you've come up with great content and done all the thinking that would come from original differentiated content, it can be good at summarizing and spotting gaps and things like that. So I'm completely on the same page with you as well on all of that. Do you have any kind of funny or cautionary tales where you or anyone on the team has tried to use AI and it's backfired or gone a little bit wrong, made you all laugh?
I have one story about, a mishap. It wasn't related to AI. It was pure old human error.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
So one thing I experienced recently, it was just moment of terror during a live webinar. So the backstory is we had an outside guest speaker. I was really excited to have him on the webinar. He kind of graciously gave his time to join us. We were using a different platform for webinars, Zoom events. Some of your listeners might be more familiar with that tool. It's just a lot more powerful tool for like live or hybrid virtual events. And we were testing it out to see if, it would help us increase the production value of our webinars. But we're used to using the standard Zoom webinars tool. I've been using it for years. So Zoom Events has this feature called the backstage, which is great because you can have multiple people talking to each other backstage, not interfering with what's going on the live stream. So we really tried to test it. Let's test having everybody who's speaking move out of the backstage onto the webinar. And so I was confident we knew how to do it. But when we went live, both of our speakers were on, the stage, and there was no sound. And so finally I decided, okay, I'm going to have to exit the backstage. And then as soon as I exited the backstage, I realized that the audience had been able to hear them the whole time, but they got off kind of an awkward start because they thought that the audience couldn't hear them. So our presenters were pros. They recovered really fast, and the rest of it was fine. But it was
That's funny.
Sheer panic for everyone.
That's so funny. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter how many times you do a dress rehearsal either, or you practice with the tool and things like that. Something like that's going to happen in the live, isn't it? So that's so funny. I'm always really conscious when I go on to webinars or virtual events and I'm in the back, like the green room in the back there. There's always a little part of me that is very reserved because I'm thinking, just like that scenario, I'm just gonna, I'm in presenter mode almost from the point of being in that back room just in case. So that's so funny.
Yeah, I'm the same way because I moderate a lot of our webinars. So I'll introduce the speaker and then turn my camera off and then handle, the Zoom chat and all of that. And I'm always so worried that I will have forgotten to turn my camera off and I will not be paying attention and my face will be huge on the live webinar. So I'm always, is the video off like it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There's so many benefits to doing live, isn't there? But there's always that fear. But fair play to you, and it's great to do these live experiences because I think that the fear of things like that, it's enough to put so many marketing teams and content teams off ever venturing into the world of live webinars and live events and things like that. So, good for you for embracing that, and good old human error. It's still like human error, AI error. There's always going to be some sort of mistake along the line, isn't there? So as long as we can laugh about them.
I always tell the presenters, if there's a little mistake here or there, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it shows the audience that we are live. And I think people appreciate that. They appreciate knowing that there's real people on the other end of this thing. And, they'll have grace for a couple mishaps as long as you're engaging with them and bringing them something valuable.
Yeah. In this world of like undifferentiated commodity content and a lot of AI content and being the same, and, people questioning whether it was robots that created it, there's really nothing more authentic than that kind of content. And then, like you said, if it goes a bit wrong, it couldn't even be more authentic. It's almost like I feel like there'll be more and more people craving this kind of more unpolished content and things like that, because it kind of gets a little bit boring, if not, doesn't it? Because we are fed a lot of the alternative content. So yeah, I completely agree. Well, looking into your crystal ball, so to speak, what do you think is going to be maybe a key feature of B2B marketing in, say, the next 5 to 10 years or so? So, like, are there any big innovations or any changes that you see on the horizon there in this space?
I do think that, the proliferation of AI tools is just really going to make us redefine, what is the function of content marketing. Part of me, wonders if the proliferation of those tools is going to make that true insight more rare or harder to find. I think, there will be enough companies or, content marketers who are really just using it to churn out a high volume of content that I think it's going to get a little bit harder for audiences to sift through all those piles of B2B content to find, what they're looking for, like a diamond in the rough. People still want ideas that are going to help them see their industry and their business differently. So I think that B2B marketers who are able to think that way and who are committed to really learning in depth how their customers operate are just going to have an advantage. I think that content marketing teams might be a little bit more leaner and more efficient, but that people who can bring those insights will be, at the center of it. I think, so this is maybe a more optimistic take, but I think that in B2B marketing, the most successful companies or marketing teams are going to be the ones who move away from treating content as a commodity and shift resources instead to making things that are more experiential, more relational. So like live events, again, if they're catered to the needs of the leaders within, their B2B audience, events can become a marketplace of ideas, a spot that people can connect with leaders who are thinking really deeply about the future of their industries. They can learn from others who might have a novel approach or doing things a little bit differently. And so I think content marketers really can't leave that kind of thing up to product marketers or event specialists. We have to be in that boat to help develop the content that is really the backbone of those events.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's going to be a really fun boat to be on, so to speak, as well. And it's going to be really challenging for those teams, but it's going to be really rewarding getting it right as well and being those diamonds in the rough, so to speak, because the rough's going to get rough, but the diamonds are going to shine. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. So we're reaching the last part of the interview now. So we are going to ask you a question that came from our last guest. So I love this feature. I will ask you a question from our last guest, and then you get the chance to ask a question to our next guest. So the question for you, it comes from Hannah Thorson. She's Senior Demand Generation Manager for the webinar campaigns at Bamboo HR. And the question that she has for you is,
do you think scalability is going to be as important in the next 10 years as it has been in the past?
Yeah, I do think that scalability will really continue to be a priority, but perhaps, maybe instead of looking at it the way we always have, which is scaling content marketing teams and operations in order to create a higher volume of content, like SEO blog articles to try to drive inbound search traffic across a lot of different topics and search terms. I kind of think instead that the emphasis of scalability will need to shift to creating content that's more relevant and personalized for ideal customers or, target accounts. So I think this kind of goes back to the unique value of content that's more experiential, more relational. So content curation and also collaboration with sales enablement teams is really, really important for this. And so my 2 cents would be, content marketing teams should work more on scaling those capabilities instead of just scaling up content creation.
Absolutely love that answer. So thank you. That was excellent. I'm sure Hannah will be really pleased with that. So yeah, great answer. So it kind of turns to you now. So if you're in a room full of senior content strategists like yourself, B2B content specialists, what question would you like to ask?
Yeah, so my question is about hiring and growing a content marketing team. I think that a lot of skills to do content marketing well are soft skills that can be learned, but maybe some, are a little bit more non-negotiable. So if you're hiring a content marketer, what skills do you look for that are absolutely essential?
Love that question. Thanks. That's an excellent question. I love to hear the next guest's answer. So thank you. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, Megan. Now, there's loads of other things I'd love to ask you, but of course we've run out of time. So perhaps a part 2 another day, but it's been fantastic. So thank you. And I know that everybody who is listening and watching will have gained so much value. So thank you for sharing, so many different insights and experiences and stories. It's been really good. Is there any next step that you would like any of our listeners to take?
I doubt many of our listeners are in the real estate industry, but if you're curious to see what AppFolio is doing, we have all of our content is at appfolio.com/industry insights, so you can kind of browse and see examples of some of what we've worked on, including the top of our podcast, some of our webinars. We also have been, building out pillar pages, which are, a combination of thought leadership and, SEO. So yeah, you can take a look and see what we've been up to at AppFolio if you're curious.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure, there may well be people within the industry will find that super useful. And otherwise, it's just great examples of content too. So I will share all of the links, some really interesting links to all of that in the show notes. So again, thanks, Megan. It's been an awesome conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amy. This was fun.